4 spine-chilling tales of haunted villages, unexplained terrors revealed in Volume 7. Sarah stepped into Hollow Creek, a place shrouded in an unsettling calm, its quaint charm quickly giving way to a suffocating tension. The quaint white picket fences stood like sentinels, guarding secrets buried deep in the soil. Each house looked like a scene from a faded postcard, yet the air felt thick with something sinister. With her 2 children, Lily and little Max, she hoped to leave the darkness of her past behind. The whispers of the wind seemed to promise safety, a stark contrast to the horrors that chased her away from everything familiar. But as days twisted into nights, the illusion broke. Glances from neighbors turned sideways, smiles felt like masks hiding something darker. Every friendly offer of help carried a weight that left her skin crawling. When Lily began whispering about her new friend in the woods, Sarah dismissed it as childhood imagination. But when strange noises came at night, hushed voices echoing down the halls, shadows darting past their windows, tension thickened in her chest. The chill creeping under her skin felt alive, wrapping around her throat, tightening her breath. One stormy evening, as thunder roared like some ancient beast, Max vanished from their sight. Panic washed over Sarah as she called out his name, each echo swallowed by the oppressive silence of the village. A knot of despair formed in her stomach. The village was no longer picturesque but transformed into a dread-fueled nightmare. Neighbors shuffled around, feigning concern, their eyes glinting with dark amusement. Their comforting words felt hollow, like an echo that never reached her heart. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Time was slipping through her fingers as she raced to the authorities. The sheriff, her last hope, dismissed her fears with a wave of indifference. It's just a boy playing, he said, but Sarah felt the walls tightening. The history of Hollow Creek pulled at her like a terrifying specter, whispering its dark truths. Unearthing that history sent her spiraling into a world of twisted legends and chilling old newspapers. The tales told of a curse thriving on fear, families pulled apart, children sacrificed under the masquerade of community events. Panic lit a fire in her chest as she pieced together the fragments of centuries-old rituals, each revelation tightening the noose of dread around her. As the last rays of sun dipped below the horizon, shadows whispered of predation. Each forced smile from the villagers sharpened into a threat. She could almost hear the malicious laughter bleeding through the walls. Her heart pounded loudly, and fear clawed at her throat. She had to find Max before the village took him too. A familiar, chilling voice cut the silence, echoing through her mind like a haunting refrain, calling for her lost son, luring her toward the woods. What had she stumbled into? And would she be able to save her children from the clutches of an ancient darkness? The night loomed dense, and as her breath quickened, the hairs on the back of her neck stood tall. The village was alive, and it wanted something from her. The woods loomed ahead, their gnarled branches swaying like skeletal fingers. Shadows danced, shifting as if they had a will of their own. Heart racing, Sarah took a step forward, despite the primal urge to turn back. She couldn't shake the feeling that the forest was a living entity, breathing with her fears. Max! She screamed, voice cutting through the night like glass. The echoes faded into oppressive silence, leaving only the whisper of wind that seemed to mock her desperation. Each step into the dark, tangled underbrush was like wading deeper into an abyss. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, forcing herself to breathe. The chilly air hit her lungs, sharp and bitter. What was happening to her? Was this nightmare real? Lily's voice echoed in her mind, the innocent words about her new friends slipping through the fog of dread. Mommy, he's really nice. He wants to play. The memory twisted in her gut like a knife. Who was he? Was it possible he was the key to finding Max? A distant sound broke her reverie, wild laughter, maniacal and echoing off the trees. It sent shivers down her spine. Was it the villagers? Or something worse? The laughter mingled with the whispering rustles of leaves, creating a symphony of terror that wrapped tightly around her. She ventured further, forcing her feet through the thicket, branches clawing at her clothes. The smell of damp earth was overwhelming, mingling with a metallic scent that made her gag. It felt wrong, everything felt wrong. Then, as if summoned by her fears, she saw a flicker of light. It glowed eerily at the edge of a clearing. A fire? Maybe it was the villagers, searching for Max? Desperation filled her as she approached, the heat on her face stirring a mix of dread and hope. But as she broke through the underbrush, her breath caught in her throat. A circle of shadowy figures surrounded the flickering flames. Their faces were shrouded, obscured by hoods, and they moved in unison, their bodies swaying to a rhythm only they could hear. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, a palpable energy that reverberated with the crackle of the flames. Everything within her screamed to turn and run, but her limbs betrayed her. She was rooted to the spot, her gaze drawn to the center of the gathering. Something or someone was bound there, shrouded in darkness. It was a child, not mine, she thought, panic flooding in. But the features were eerily familiar. A small hand reached outward, trembling in the flickering light. "Mommy, help." The voice was a whisper, caught between the smoke and the shadows, yet it sliced through her heart. "Max!" she roared, breaking free from the spell of horror. But before she could take a step closer, one of the figures turned, tilting its head as if sensing her presence. A hollow gaze met hers, shrouded in shadows and malice. "Not yet," it rasped, voice like broken glass. "The night is young, and the offering must be made." A sickening realization hit Sarah. The villagers weren't just warm, friendly faces hiding their secrets, they were part of this ritual, this dark tradition. And Max was next. She felt the weight of their cold eyes pressing down on her, snuffing out any hope she had left. Heart pounding, she backed away slowly, her mind racing. She needed a plan. She had to save him. But the laughter rang in her ears, sending tremors through her resolve. They were closing in, and soon the circle would shrink until it was too late. What choice did she have left, and could she unravel this ancient evil before her son became its next sacrifice? Shadows deepened as darkness closed in, and the laughter grew louder, morphing into a chorus that drowned out any chance of escape. With every fiber of her being, Sarah turned to flee, plunging back into the woods, racing against time and the sinister fate awaiting Max. But where would she find help when everything she thought she knew was falling apart? Could she outrun the village's curse, or was Hollow Creek destined to swallow them all whole? Trees loomed overhead like giants shrouded in darkness, their branches scratching at the night sky as Sarah ran, her breath a frantic rhythm that matched her pounding heart. The crackling laughter followed her, relentless and mocking, echoing in the hollow spaces of her mind. It twisted her thoughts, turning hope into dread with each fleeting moment. "Max!" she gasped, the name spilling out with desperate urgency. Her feet pounded the damp earth, every step a rebellion against the paralyzing fear that gripped her. She couldn't think. All she could do was run away from those shadowy figures and their sinister chanting. With every swing of her arms, the frostbitten air stung her skin, reminding her of the realities she was defying. The landscape morphed around her. The familiar path faded into a continuous blur of darkness and fear, wrapping around her like a suffocating blanket. Her thoughts darted between visions of her son and the names whispered in the shadows. The offering must be made. What did they want? What price would they demand? A sudden rustle nearby sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. She stopped and strained to listen. The laughter had stopped now, only silence hung heavily, pressing against her eardrums. But something else was there, a soft scuffling sound. Her pulse quickened. Was it a villager? Did they know where she was? Gathering her strength, Sarah edged forward, squinting into the opacity. The moonlight barely pierced the clusters of trees, casting ghostly shadows that danced as if alive. Then, movement ahead, a figure staggered into view. A child. "Max?" she whispered, heart surging with confusion and dread. An oddly familiar silhouette stood near a twisted tree, but as she drew closer, her breath caught. It wasn't Max. The figure morphed before her, a gaunt child with hollow eyes and skin too pale for the moonlight. It looked at her, mouth stretching into a smile that felt more like a snarl. "Help me," the creature croaked, sounding like a mix between her son and the darkness itself. Her body froze, fear rooted her feet to the ground. "They'll take you too." With lightning speed, she bolted backward, terror igniting every nerve. But it wasn't just the child. Figures were emerging around her, their shapes misting in and out of view, cloaked in darkness, brandishing something glinting in the sparse light. Ritualistic daggers? "No, no!" She swung past them, the sinister whispers trailing close behind. She needed to escape, she needed to find Max. Clutching hope like a dagger, she raced deeper into the oppressive foliage, branches snagging her clothes and skin. Her breath came in jagged gasps, fighting back panic as the laughter returned, hauntingly close. "What have you brought us?" A voice boomed from ahead, and she skidded to a halt. The clearing stretched out before her again, but it was different this time. The circle of figures loomed larger. Their hoods shifted, turning her way, frustration mingling with amusement in their eyes. "Come, join our dance," the voice crackled, inviting yet laden with evil. The flickering flames of the fire cast a baleful glow, their shadows turning the forest into a living nightmare. It was a beckoning, a trap. "Run!" she screamed to herself, spinning on her heels, limbs burning as she fled. But the path shrank, the forest closing in like jaws ready to snap shut. Threads of light danced in the distance, possibly an exit or the heart of the horror waiting to swallow her whole. She clung to the thought like a lifeline. But the shadows breathed on her neck, their laughter turning into a roaring wave, a storm that threatened to pull her under. "Join us," the chorus bled into her mind as she raced toward the light, but it had turned into a hungry maw, swallowing the hope that illuminated her path. What awaited her at the edge of the clearing? Redemption or damnation? She had to know, or perish trying. Branches clawed at her, their gnarled fingers reaching out with an insidious intent. Sarah felt their sinister touches on her skin, but she couldn't stop. She pushed through the suffocating embrace of the darkness, each footfall a desperate plea for escape. The flickering light from the fire behind her flickered in her peripheral vision, taunting her like a lighthouse signaling a shipwreck. "Just keep moving," Sarah urged herself, but her movements felt sluggish. The air thickened, pressing against her chest like a lead weight. As she staggered forward, a heavy whisper slithered through the trees, more rhythmic than the laughter that had haunted her. "Join us," she squeezed her eyes shut, willing it to be a figment of her imagination, but the voice echoed louder, each syllable a vow binding her to their cursed fate. Panic coursed through her veins, setting her heart racing as fragments of forgotten stories flickered back to mind. Tales of children lost, sacrifices made, dark rituals hidden under the guise of night. Their faces loomed in her consciousness, blurred yet distinct, pleading and terrified. "Max!" She screamed again, but her voice barely surfaced above the growing cacophony of sinister chants. The shadows danced among the trees, more than mere specters. They were alive, seeking out. She could feel their eyes on her, a cruel warmth creeping up her spine. Then, ahead, the light surged brighter. She narrowed her gaze, her breath hitching. Was it hope, or another misleading glimmer of deception? Each step pushed her forward, relentless even as jagged stones bit into her feet. Suddenly, the laughter erupted once more, that twisted cacophony sounding like the wails of the damned. Sarah felt the ground tremble beneath her, the earth quaking as if it were alive and aware. She stumbled, gasping as she braced herself against a tree, its bark rough against her palm. "Run!" A thought, a command. But the shadows were gathering, swirling around her. Lean figures emerged, chant rising in fervor. Their eyes glowed, smoldering with an unearthly hunger. She recognized their shapes, familiar faces twisted in mockery. They were the villagers, but worse than she remembered. Their skin hung loose, tight around hollow cheeks, eyes large and sparkled with malevolence. "Help us!" the hollow child echoed, the sound a layered scream in the darkness, forming a tapestry of despair that threatened to consume her. A primal fear gripped her heart. They were here for her, for a reason she was about to unravel. But there was no time for clarity. They closed in, encircling her with intent. "Stop!" she cried, instinctively raising her arms, taking a brave step back. She felt the pulse of power thrumming through her, a fight or flight surge deep within. The figures faltered, almost uncertain now. She heard chatter among them, the threadbare remnants of humanity still tangled in their words. "An offering. Make the choice, they are lost, shall we take her?" Desperate, Sarah sprinted toward the blazing light, past the wavering figures, teeth gritted against the fear that threatened to swallow her whole. She could almost touch the warmth, almost feel an escape close enough to taste. Just then, one of the shadowy figures lunged. The chilling grip of icy fingertips brushed her shoulder, pulling her back. "No!" she yelped, a shriek bursting from her lips, and with one last push she ducked free of their grasp. The firelight was upon her, blazing fiercely, no longer welcoming, but an inferno swallowing her whole. She leapt forward, feeling the fiery heat surround her, but could she withstand the agonizing embers of the truth? In those excruciating instants, she caught a glimpse of something in the flames, a vision of Max's face, filled with confusion and pain. "Max!" she screamed one last time, biting the edge of anguish. With the shadows engulfing her, she dove into the light, the world warping around her, leaving her fate hanging precariously between freedom and the darkness. What twists lay ahead in this treacherous dance? Time warped, and realities blurred. She had to know what awaited her in the fire, or would it consume her completely? The light engulfed her, sensation exploding like fireworks, blinding and intense. Sarah felt herself tumble through a tunnel of searing brightness, her body twisting in a kaleidoscope of color and flames. With a jarring thud, she landed onto solid ground, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She gasped, rolling onto her back, staring at the smoldering sky above. The inferno that had chased her was gone, it had dissipated into nothingness. Panic flared anew as she scrambled to her feet, scanning her surroundings. She stood in a clearing, an eerie stillness settling over everything like a blanket. The trees stood silent, shrouded in mist, their twisted branches stretching toward her, skeletons beckoning her closer. Shadows whispered among them, a shiver racing down her spine as low, distorted murmurs echoed around her. She stood frozen, the air thick and cold, fingers gripping her arms in fear. Then, movement caught her eye, a figure emerged from the mist. Her heart raced as the form took shape. It was Max, she cried, rushing forward. But the moment she stepped closer, he staggered backward, a look of pure terror on his face. "Stay back!" His voice was a rasp, filled with dread. He glanced over his shoulder at the mist, eyes wide as if something loomed just behind him. Fear crashed over Sarah like a wave. "What is happening? Where are we?" she shouted, desperation seeping into her tone. Before he could reply, the whispers crescendoed, echoing through the clearing. "She brings the light." One of the shadows broke free from the trees, creeping closer on elongated limbs. Sarah's breath caught as it revealed its grotesque face, one that she recognized, yet was horrified to see. It was the woman from the village, her features twisted and pained like a marionette snipped from strings. "Increase the offering," it hissed, eyes gleaming with a hunger that churned Sarah's stomach. A whirlwind of doubt swirled within her. "Offering? To whom?" "Max, run!" she shouted, turning back to him, but he remained frozen, entranced by the apparition. Heavy silence enveloped them, skin prickling with the weight of unspoken truths. "Sarah, no! It's not what it seems." Max's voice trembled, but it was swallowed by the dark chant rising again, a vicious cycle repeating. The shadows encroached, weaving closer and closer until they formed a wall, pushing Sarah into the center. Each figure wore familiar faces, memories now twisted into something grotesque and undesired. "Join us," they chanted, and the ground lurched beneath her. "No!" Sarah screamed, heart hammering in her chest. She felt the fervor build in her, fear turning to anger. Her fingers tingled as she reached deep within, summoning the pulse of power she had felt before. She needed to break free, to shatter this illusion that sought to bind her. "Get away from him!" she yelled, as the heat surged outward, radiating from her. The shadows recoiled, hissing as the light forced them back. "I want to lose you!" she screamed towards Max, her soul aching with the weight of their bond. The shadows hissed, swirling angrily, a storm of rage driven by the threat she posed. Max stepped forward, eyes locking with hers, filled with a desperate hope cloaked in fear. "Sarah!" he cried, but she saw the hesitation as he fought against the pull of the darkness. "Trust me!" The shadows lunged, and in that moment, Sarah felt herself breaking apart. She had to choose: unleash her power in a desperate act of defiance, or surrender to the growing darkness that claimed them. The mist thickened, and a chilling howl erupted around them. Would the fire within her extinguish the shadows, or would she and Max be lost forever in their wrath? Before she chose, everything went black. What awaited them in the depths of that darkness? Would Sarah's power be enough, or were they merely pawns in a game far beyond their understanding? Darkness enveloped her, swallowing Sarah whole. It was a void far worse than she'd known before, a suffocating silence that pressed against her skin. She felt weightless, like she was suspended in some terrible dream. Thoughts raced through her mind, fragmented and chaotic. Max, where was he? Was he safe? As if summoned, the darkness began to twitch. Shapes swirled around her, unrecognizable yet familiar, like echoes of something she was supposed to know. Sarah blinked furiously, trying to make sense of it all, but all she saw was shadow. "Max!" she shouted, her voice swallowed by nothingness. Panic surged through her veins. The shadows began to pulse, twitching as though they were alive, breathing, hungry. She turned, desperate for something, anything, but the black continued to stretch endlessly. Then came a whisper, soft and sinister. "You failed her. Who are you?" she cried, grasping for the voice, but it danced away like smoke. The darkness twisted, forming visions of the village, its streets empty and cracked, shadows flitting just beyond the edges of townsfolk's memories, lurking in the corners of their abandoned homes. "Let the memories consume you." Images flashed before her, burning her mind's eye, moments of laughter twisted into contorted faces, familiar gestures morphing into menacing caricatures. Each recalled face drained Sarah's courage. Those weren't her friends anymore. They were lost in a layer of despair she couldn't touch. "Stop it!" she shouted, but her voice trembled. Doubt crept like ice through her heart. Was this her truth? Was she worthy of fighting? "Free us!" the voices enveloped her, pleading and mocking. They drowned her goodness in a flood of despair. "Or join us!" She turned to run but stumbled, crashing against an unseen wall. It hit back with a jolt that plunged her deeper into apathy. The whispers became a chorus, a net closing around her reality. Her limbs felt weighted, heavy like stones dragging her down into a cold abyss. Somewhere, a flicker ignited a faint glimmer, like the first spark of dawn in the east. With every ounce of will, she focused on that light. Max. She needed him. She needed their bond to break through the dark. Fingers outstretched toward the warmth of that light, she felt a spark of heat building inside her. It surged fiercely, filling her with urgency. Suddenly, the images of the twisted villages shifted, revealing a path amid the chaos, a thread leading her from the heart of the shadows. "Don't let them take you," she whispered to herself, clawing at the darkness, the memory of Max's face fueling her inner flame. The path trembled beneath her feet, the shadows twisting in fury. With a final scream, Sarah pushed against the darkness, unleashing the power surging within. Light exploded from her, shattering the veil of blackness as shards of shadow splintered away. She felt herself being pulled toward the core of the village, the unmistakable pulse of life beckoning her forward. But then, a sharp, biting laughter pierced the air. "You think light can save you? The darkness is deeper than you know." In that instant, the shadows reeled back, leaving room for clarity, for a choice. As her surroundings sharpened around her, reality coalesced like fog lifting at dawn. But something was off. The ground beneath her felt fragile, as if it were made of glass about to shatter. Tension gripped her throat. She could feel eyes watching, a sinister gaze coalescing from the forest's edge. "Choose quickly!" The haunting laughter taunted, echoing among the trees that loomed like specters. She had come this far, But what lay ahead? Would her light outshine the darkness, or would it drag her under once again? Sarah stood facing the menacing woods, hand raised to quell the shadows. But as she stepped forward, the ground trembled, and a piercing shriek erupted from the trees, a reminder that not all darkness can be escaped. What awaited her in the depths of those woods? Would she confront the evil, or would it consume her completely? The shriek ripped through Sarah's thoughts, a harrowing sound that sent chills racing down her spine. She clutched her forehead as memories flashed, each one layered with dread. Shadows morphed into grotesque figures, things she thought she had left behind. The village, her home, flickered in her mind like a broken film reel. Breath hitching, she took a cautious step toward the edge of the forest. Each inch felt like it wore a heavy weight, as if the very ground was warning her to turn back. Max, she whispered, knowing he could be lost in that darkness with her, but she couldn't turn away now. Those who venture and rarely come out, a voice snickered, slithering through the air like smoke. The trees shifted, branches clawing at the sky, leaves shivering as if anticipating a storm. Enough! Sarah shouted, her voice seeming small in the immensity of the woods. But confidence surged through her, ignited by the memory of Max's reassuring smile. She wasn't done yet. The forest loomed, hungrily waiting. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped forward. The moment her foot touched the tangled, gnarled roots, an unnatural chill gripped her. The ground beneath shuddered, and shadows sprang to life, darting away only to reform among the undergrowth, whispering her name in mocking chants. Join us, they echoed, stitching together the refrain with the breeze. She pressed on despite the ominous sounds swirling around her. The air thickened, heavy and sharp, crackling with a malevolence that left her gasping. Every instinct screamed for her to flee, yet she felt herself drawn into the dark heart of the woods. Then the sight of something caught her eye, a flicker, perhaps a sign of hope. Just ahead, nestled between the twisted roots, a faint glow pulsed rhythmically. With each beat, she felt a strange compulsion, as if the light was breathing with an urgency that matched her own racing heart. But as she drew closer, the laughter returned deep and twisted. The source of the light transformed, shifting into a distorted face she knew. You shouldn't have come here, Sarah. It distorted, morphing into an uncanny blend of familiarity and terror. Max. The urgency struck her. She forced herself to the light, but its warmth twisted into something colder, a parody of comfort. Suddenly, roots shot up like snakes, wrapping around her ankles, pulling her down. Panic surged anew as she clawed at the soil, struggling against the suffocating grip. No! I can't fall! I must find Max! The shadows danced closer, limbs twisting around her like whispers, their eyes gleaming with hunger. Surrender, it's easier to give, and they hissed, their voices a terrible symphony of temptation and despair. Sarah could feel despair clenching around her heart, its icy grip threatening to steal her will. Stop! She screamed at the entities ensnaring her, drawing in breath to use what light remained inside her, a final burst of defiance. And then came a flash, less a thought, and more a feeling, a connection reaching out like a hand. It surged from her heart, propelled by memories of laughter and warmth. Max! She cried again, louder now, feeling the reverberation through the air, forcing the darkness to listen. With a burst of energy, she pushed back against the roots, the light inside her igniting into a beacon. For a heartbeat, everything stilled. As the shadows recoiled, she felt a shift, a moment of clarity amid the chaos. But even as she broke free, a cold voice lingered in the air, slithering through her resolve. You can't escape your fate, Sarah. Heart pounding, Sarah ran deeper into the woods, chasing the glimmering promise of light. Yet the forest began to twist around her, paths changing, disorienting her. Each turn revealed threats masked as allies, illusions mixing truth and terror. Where was Max? Was he a prisoner of the same darkness that now ensnared her? The thirst for answers surged within her as she raced forward. But new shadows stretched out from the trees, shadows that taunted her with everything she feared. How much longer could she keep running? The echoing laughter began to merge into a chorus, chanting her name, entwining with her very being. And just when she thought she could outrun it all, the ground buckled beneath her, the universe shifting, throwing her into a new realm of despair. "Face your nightmare," whispered the shadows, as the earth collapsed. Where would Sarah land? Would she find Max in this altered plane, or would she merely walk deeper into despair? The world spun as Sarah fell, darkness enveloping her like a thick blanket. She tumbled endlessly until a harsh, jarring stop hurled her against the cold, unforgiving surface. Pain shot through her body, but she couldn't focus on that. All around her was a suffocating silence, oppressive and thick, punctuated only by the faintest whispers, weaving through the air like smoke. "Get up, Sarah!" a voice urged, indistinct and ghostly, wrapping her in a cold embrace. It sounded like Max, familiar yet distant. Panic clawed at her throat as she fought the heaviness weighing her down. She pushed herself off the ground, palms sinking into damp earth. Shadows lurked just beyond a flickering light, teasing and taunting, coiling around her legs like creeping vines. Glancing around, she found herself in a strange landscape. Gnarled trees surrounded her, their branches twisted into grotesque shapes that beckoned her forward. A pale, sickly light pulsed from deep within the woods, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. "Max!" she shouted, desperation lacing her voice. "Where are you?" The only response was an eerie silence, a heavy pause before the shadows began to move closer. Their whispers escalated. She could almost make out individual phrases. Lost forever, they echoed like a haunting melody. Taking a deep breath, Sarah moved toward the light, forcing her way through the twisting shadows. Each step sent tremors through her body, filled with uncertainty. Was it a path or a trap? The ground crumbled beneath her feet like shattered glass. Every instinct told her to retreat, but the thought of Max pushed her on. As she drew nearer, the glow grew stronger, illuminating the scene before her. It was a clearing, bathed in an otherworldly radiance. And there, standing in the light, was Max, or what remained of him. He looked different, almost ethereal, a silhouette draped in sorrow. Sarah, his voice was a ghost of itself, mournful, echoing through the still air. "Help me! I'm coming!" she cried. Reaching her arms out, she surged forward, heart racing, only to feel the shadows rip through her fingertips, pulling her back. "No!" she screamed, fighting against their grip. The shadows twisted violently, their forms morphing into unsettling faces, each one a reflection of her fear. "You don't belong here," Sarah Max's figure flickered, like a flame threatened by wind. "You have to trust me," he urged, but the shadows surged, swallowing his form. "Max!" Her voice grew frantic, desperation twisting in her gut. In one moment, he was there. In the next gone, like smoke dissipating into the air. A wave of despair crashed over her, knotting her stomach. Tears threatened to spill, but she couldn't give in, not now. She clawed at the shadows, rage igniting within her. "I won't let you take him." The shadows recoiled, staggering back from her fierce determination. But as she fought, the ground beneath her lurched, twisting and turning like it had a mind of its own. She stumbled, heart pounding against the walls of her chest, instincts screaming that she was running out of time. "Face your fears, Sarah," the shadows hissed, voices crescendoing into a maddening chorus. "You can't escape what you are." The words sent a jolt of panic through her. What did they mean? But before she could unravel that nightmare, the ground dissolved again, and she felt herself being pulled down, deeper into darkness. "Sarah!" Another voice shouted, a different tone, laced with urgency. It filled her with fleeting hope. But could she trust it? And then she fell again, into the unknown. As the abyss swallowed her whole, a question echoed in her mind. Would she find Max? Or would she spiral into a darkness from which there was no return? This time, the answer felt close, hovering just beyond her reach. The fall felt endless, but then everything stopped. Sarah found herself sprawled on a hard, cobbled floor, the coldness seeping through her clothes. She scrambled to sit up, heart racing, breaths coming in shallow gasps. The surroundings were different now, dimly lit by flickering torches mounted on stone walls. The echo of her own breath seemed to bounce back at her, a reminder of her solitude. Shadows danced around her, but this time they had form. She could make out twisted faces leering at her, hollow and haunting. They didn't whisper now, they watched, their eyes glinting with unspeakable hunger. "Where am I?" she murmured, the words barely breaking the heavy calm. Welcome, a voice slithered through the cool air, smooth yet filled with malice. "You've come to play, haven't you?" Instinctively, Sarah's skin prickled. She whipped around, searching for the source. An eerie figure emerged from the shadows, cloaked in darkness. Its face was obscured, but the outline depicted a grin that made her stomach twist. "What do you want from me?" she croaked, even as fear pulled in the pit of her stomach, heavy and suffocating. "Your pain. Your fears," it replied. "They fuel us." More shadows surged forward, their forms shifting, a mass of teeth and claws. Panic rose within her, forcing her to her feet. She couldn't be just a source of fuel. She had to escape. Turning on her heels, Sarah fled down a narrow passage. The sound of feet drumming behind her sent adrenaline coursing through her veins. Each frantic heartbeat echoed in her ears, drowning out the sinister laughter merging with the rhythm of her flight. Ahead, the passage split into two, left or right? With no time to think, she plunged right, the walls closing in around her like a living thing, squeezing the air from her lungs. Behind her, the laughter grew more pronounced, filling the space with dread. "Run, little girl! You can't hide from yourself." A flicker of memory struck her, the shadows whispered her fears. Was it true? She stumbled into an open room. It was expansive, the walls lined with mirrors reflecting her one by one. But the reflections were twisted, morphing faces in abomination of herself, each one more grotesque than the last. She saw scenes flash behind them, mistakes, losses, the shadows of her past looming large. "Face it!" the figure called, now closer. "Face the truth, Sarah." A rush of heat filled her body, the memories rushing back like a flood. Moments she wished to forget surged, mixing with regret, pain, sorrow. Realizations came crashing down. These shadows were more than just monsters. They were pieces of her. "No!" she shouted, anger boiling inside her. "You won't take me!" With a surge of will, she lunged toward the nearest mirror. The glass felt warm against her palm, rippling as if alive. She felt an undeniable pull, a connection. A pathway? "Stay away!" The figure's voice squirmed in terror, its grin faltering. As the shadows drew nearer, hunger radiating from them, Sarah pushed through, feeling the glass part around her arm. Cold air surrounded her, whispering sweet promises of freedom and safety. But at what cost? The world around her shimmered, colors swirling as the shadows reached, clawing for her, desperately trying to tether her to the darkness. "Sarah! You cannot escape what you fear most," the echoes of her memories moaned, stretching their haunting tendrils toward her. "Max!" she screamed, reaching for him, but uncertainty loomed. Was he waiting for her, or would the shadows bring him to her too? As she felt herself being pulled into the mirror, heart racing, first touch of clarity clouded by doubt, she whispered, "I'll find you." And then, she was gone, leaving nothing behind but the twisted reflections and a laughter that punctured the very fabric of the room. What awaited her in this new world? Would she embrace her fears, or would they consume her entirely? Emerging from the void, Sarah gasped as the shimmering world enveloped her, pouring out warmth like sunlight breaking through dark clouds. The dazzling glow swirled around her, viscous yet inviting. But it only took a fleeting moment for her heart to sink. She wasn't alone. Max lay sprawled before her, eyes closed, his little form dimmed by an oppressive aura. Panic washed over her like ice water. "Max!" she cried, rushing to his side, her heart in her throat. She knelt beside him, trembling fingers brushing his cheek. Relief flooded her when he stirred, his eyelids fluttering open. "Mommy?" His voice cracked, heavy with fear. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." The moment she clasped his tiny hands, a wave of warmth burst between them, a tether forged by unconditional love. The shadows around them, the memory of a world steeped in dread, seemed to recoil, as if threatened by their bond. "We have to go, Max," she whispered, urgency coursing through her. But the shadows led by that grotesque figure crept closer, their laughter echoing like a cacophony of malice. They won't let us leave. We have to face them, Max replied, voice stronger now as he stood beside her, eyes brightened with defiance. Together. Her heart swelled. Together. Always. Drawing courage, Sarah straightened, her grip on Max's hand tightening. The shadows loomed, snaking ever closer, but now they felt different. A flicker of power ignited in her, swirling through her veins. This wasn't just fear, they were pieces of herself, manifestations of doubt and anguish. No more! She shouted, voice ringing with newfound authority. The ground trembled under the weight of her declaration. You think you can take us? You're nothing but echoes of pain that I refuse to own. A shudder coursed through the shadows as they surged forward, but Sarah pushed back against them, channeling all her rage and love. We are more than this. The air shimmered, filled with the light of her inner strength. Max's laughter joined hers, a harmonious sound that echoed through the murky chaos. The shadows wavered, caught off guard by the sheer force of their united front. They recoiled, twisting and churning like smoke in a vortex. Together, Mommy! Max urged. Yes. Together. She echoed, and with one last push, they stepped forward into the fog, their essences melding. The light became blinding, a luminous barrier safeguarding them, each barrier of shadow trembling as they pressed in, and then light erupted around them, a cascading halo of brilliance shattering the darkness. The shadows screamed, their forms disintegrating into wisps of despair. As the brilliance enveloped them, memories washed over her, moments of joy, laughter shared, the warmth of first words spoken. Precious pieces of her life filled her with strength, fueling the light. Each memory purified her soul, washing away doubt and fear. Mommy, are we safe? Max asked. Yes, love. We're safe. In that moment, Sarah realized this would be their legacy, their victory over the darkness that had seeped into their lives. The village, the curse, the echoes of horror were nothing compared to the love they held for one another. With the final remnants of shadows collapsing into oblivion, the world around them shimmered and shifted, revealing a familiar path bathed in gentle sunlight. They stood at the edge of Hollow Creek, a place that had once seemed so sinister now transformed by their resilience. The villagers around them blinked in confusion, oblivious to the battle that had just raged within their hearts. Mommy, did we save them? Max asked, his small face tilting, filled with earnest innocence. Sarah glanced around. The villagers, no longer looming with malevolence, wore expressions of wonder, shock swirling in their eyes. It was a chance for redemption for all of them. Yes, Max. We saved everyone. As they walked hand in hand down the path, sunlight poured down like a blessing. Sarah sighed deeply, feeling lighter than she had in a long time. Behind them, the village stood quiet now, its dark magic lifted, the curse broken. But Sarah also knew their journey was just beginning. With every day, they would have a chance to rewrite their story, some moments of joy and laughter where shadows once danced. And in that soft glow of late afternoon, Sarah looked down at her son, who smiled up at her, and she felt a new wave of hope blossom within. Life was waiting, and they were finally ready to embrace it. Let us go home, Max, okay? He cheered, as they stepped out of the darkness together into the radiant light of a new tomorrow. Hold up, folks. If you loved this conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel. This is the moment to show your support, and not miss any of our exclusive stories next time. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others find our tales. And don't forget to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. This story deserves to be shared, so don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this unfolds. True fans understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions. Thank you.